So I'm going to ask Jackie then if you could just say yes here, thank you, so we can make sure that we're all here for this very important meeting. So I'll just hand over to Jackie. Jackie, please.
Councillor Allison?
Yes, here.
Archer?
Yes, present.
Atkin?
Yeah, I'm here, Jackie.
Bright?
Present.
Buckler?
Yes, I'm here.
Bull?
Yes, can hear and see, thank you.
Martin Burfoot?
Yes, here, Jackie, thank you.
Sue Burfoot?
Yes, here.
Is Councillor Buttle here? I don't think so. No. Chapman?
Here.
Cruz?
Present.
Donnelly? Councillor Donnelly, I've seen you somewhere.
Yes, he is.
Fitzherbert?
Yes, present.
Flitter?
Yeah, I'm here.
Froggatt?
Yes, here, Jackie.
Vaness?
Yes, present.
Gamble?
Present.
Hill?
Yeah, here.
Hobson?
Present.
Hughes?
Present.
Lees? Councillor Lees? Councillor Lees, can you hear me? No. Tony Morley?
Here.
Michelle Morley?
Present, Jackie, thank you.
O'Brien?
Yes, I'm here.
Hawley?
Yes, I'm here.
Purdy?
Here, thank you, Jackie.
Ratcliffe?
Here.
Rose? Rose, can you hear me?
I've seen him, Jackie.
I've seen him, yeah, I'll come back. Councillor Salts, I don't think
He's on his way, Councillor Salt's on his way.
Oh, thank you. Councillor Shirley?
Present.
Black?
Present.
Statham?
Here, Jackie.
Sutton? Don't think I've seen him.
Yes, I've just arrived.
Oh.
The joining instructions were very difficult, I'm afraid.
Brindle? Oh, can't hear you, can we? Wayne?
Present and correct, thank you.
And Councillor Wakeman? I don't think I've seen him yet.
Can
Is he
you
in the
hear me?
waiting?
Here.
Can you hear me?
That.
I think he's trying to get through.
Just Councillor Wakeman.
Oh, is it?
He's at the bottom of a bait or swimming pool.
Hello there, this is Councillor Salt. Can you hear me?
Good.
Yes, thank you. Yes, yes. Okay, that's.
Can you hear me?
Oh, Councillor Wakeman's there now, yeah.
Thank you. And Councillor Lees, I can see you. Can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
And Councillor Rose.
Yes, I'm here.
Right.
Can
thank
you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
The only one I think, Jackie, that we didn't get was Councillor Donnelly. Is Councillor Donnelly present?
Councillor Donnelly's in there.
I'm here, yeah.
Yeah.
Jolly good. Okay, thank you very much. If I could ask you all to go on to mute, please, and then unmute, obviously, when it's your turn to speak.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Or else Jackie or I will mute you because we can override from our positions. Thank you very much. Okay, apologies, Jackie. Who do we have apologies from? Hold on, Jackie, you need to unmute.
Sorry. Councillors Buttle, Elliott and McDonough.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you very much. We're now going to move on to public participation, and there have been some questions tabled by the public for the item tonight, and Chris is going to put that up on the screen, and Councillor Purdy is going to answer the questions.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just wait for Chris to put the question up. Thank you, Chris. So the question on screen, as you can see, thank you, Mr. Jeremy Allen of
Can you hear
Worksworth.
me okay?
Councillor Wakeman, yes, we can hear you. Thank you. So the question is from Mr. Jeremy Allen, a Worksworth resident, and the response, Mr. Allen, is as follows. To be clear, neither DDDC nor Freedom Leisure gave any commitment to reopen on the 25th of July. Once the council received Freedom Leisure's final proposals and a request for financial support, it assessed the figures and applied for an extraordinary meeting of council within that week. Plans are in place, and should members approve the financial support package, then Freedom Leisure can mobilise and reopen within 10 days. That would be the 22nd of August. The District Council and Freedom Leisure have a joint communications protocol agreed when Freedom Leisure took over the contract of operating the leisure centres. A key element of this is that operational communications are the direct responsibility of Freedom Leisure. However, the Council and Freedom have worked together to issue joint statements during the pandemic to explain to the public the complicated impact of the global emergency. Becky is not and has not been furloughed at any point, and there are no plans to do so in the future. Next question, please, Chris. Thank you.
Right. This one's in three parts. So I'll keep changing it as you go, as you give the answer.
Thank you.
Sorry. Two.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for your answer, Ms. Deborah Winterburn, on behalf of Matlock Bailins Hockey Club. The response is as follows. Officers have been in contact with the business manager at Anthony Gell School to try and allow the club's access to the AstroTurf's oblique pitches, whilst the leisure centre is closed. But unfortunately, the school are not able to operate these pitches or allow clubs access to a key. The proposed opening hours for Worksworth Leisure Centre in option 2 were originally based on a July opening, and therefore the outdoor pitches would be much quieter during the summer months. If option 2 was approved by councillors at the committee meeting, then Freedom Leisure appreciate that there will be more bookings in the evenings and on weekends, and they will be flexible with the timings if there was a demand. Freedom Leisure will be made aware of the times you have mentioned. That concludes the public participation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, everyone. We go back to full screen. Okay, thank you very much. Item 3 is interest. None have been tabled to me or the committee team. There are no other interests, I believe. Thank you very much. Then we'll go straight on to item 4, the request for additional financial support to Freedom Leisure and Serco in light of COVID-19 impacts. At this stage, I'd like to give my grateful thanks to Ash and all his team, and all the officers at the council for their hard work in these extraordinary times, hence an extraordinary meeting, ladies and gentlemen. And although this is the same agenda item, I think for clarity and for those people watching at homes, I'm going to suggest that we vote on the first 3 recommendations first, i.e. 1, 2 and 3, about Freedom Leisure and discuss the Freedom Leisure issues, and then vote separately, as we have done before, on items 4 and 5, those appertaining to Serco and their contract. It's the same agenda items. Obviously, it's 2 separate contracts, 2 separate companies, but it's the same principles. And for clarity, that's what I propose to do. So I'd like to firstly, we're very lucky tonight to have both major executives from both Freedom and Serco, but I'd like Ash to introduce his reports. As I say, we're going to go and first of all talk about, for clarity, about Freedom Leisure. And just also to say thank you all, thank you to all those members that have tabled their questions in the last few days after the report was published. And as you will see, Ash and his team, Becky and everybody else in the council have spent an inordinate amount of time answering your questions. And so I really don't wish to repeat the minutiae of this. We've got to get to the central core of this discussion, please. So Ash, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members and colleagues. Due to the impact of the COVID pandemic, and especially since the lockdown announcement, we've seen some of our services impacted by this, and some even suffering a temporary shutdown. This report outlines how the pandemic has impacted on two of our key partners, in Serco and Freedom Leisure. In order to help the debate this evening, can I introduce Ronnie Coops, the Managing Director of Serco's Environmental Services team, and Annette Joyce, who is a Regional Director from the same team at Serco. Also, we have the Business Development Manager, Ian Morey from Freedom Leisure, and Jeremy Rowe, the Regional Director for Freedom Leisure. The report outlines the recommendations and the rationale for those recommendations, which, just for clarity, I'll just go through now if I may. And that is number one, to provide financial support for Freedom for the phased reopening of the District Council's leisure centres as per option 2 of the report. The second recommendation is to cap the level of financial support to Freedom to £300,000 for the period outlined in the report. Recommendation 3 is to review that financial support provided to Freedom through an open book accounting process. 4 is that we provide financial support to Serco to support the implementation of the new contract due to the impact of delays in the process associated to the contract challenge that we experienced and the COVID-19 pandemic. And then finally, to cap that level of financial support to Serco to £101,185. The recommendations, the requests from both partners have been received and considered by a number of officers from across the council. This includes myself, Steve Cates, Karen Henriksen, Sally Rose and Rebecca Bryan. We've also taken advice where necessary from our legal team, and with regards to the Freedom Leisure request, we have also utilised the services of FMG Consulting, who members will remember were intrinsic in the outsourcing of the service and have a sound understanding of the contract that's in place. I don't intend to go into any detail of the report, as it's clear from the number of questions, as noted by the Chair, that I've received since last Friday. Members have clearly had plenty of time to digest this and picked up on the detail of the report, but myself and colleagues are happy to take any questions, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any, I'll go to, as I say, I don't really want to have any repetition of questions because they've all been answered. And if I take your hand down, I know that, don't worry, you're still on my list. Both James McLaughlin and I are looking at the list. I'm going to go to Councillor Archer first.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully a very quick one. Just a quick question about the opening hours that have been proposed. I notice it's not proposed to have the leisure centres open on their weekend afternoons, Saturday and Sunday afternoons. I know that'll impact on some of the local clubs like the Ashbourne Swimming Club and so on who want to use it in that time, and obviously people who may be at work or at school in the week. The weekends are times they could get down and get their exercise in. Is there a particular reason why the leisure centres are proposing to only open in the mornings, in the weekends?
Okay, thank you.
Chair, if I may, could I ask Jeremy Rowe to come in on this point, please?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the question. Yeah, I think it's just to be noted that sort of this was a point in time that we provided these details, and certainly they're not set in stone as to what we may see come through the doors. And we've also benefited over the last couple of weeks of seeing how other centres in other areas have performed as well. So it's very much, if the demand is there, then and that's viable, then we will expand the services to meet that. And I think one of the important points in the report is that it's on a very open basis, both in terms of financial viability and communication, really. So yeah, we're keen to sort of get the green light, if you like, to move forward. And then we'll be refreshing our sort of approach with both the team that come back off furlough and the local communities. So ultimately, we're there to serve them. And we've seen already in some of the contracts that we have reactivated that within 1 or 2 days of reactivating, we've had to add extra services because the demand was there in a certain activity. So whether that's exercise classes or giving access to clubs that are ready to reactivate. So yeah, it's I guess a point in time where we have to capture something and give an indication of what this situation may look like to start off with. But certainly it'll be fluid, and we'll be obviously reporting, as outlined in the report, on a monthly basis, clarifying and confirming that performance, and hopefully we can rebuild back up to where we were quite quickly.
Thank you. Councillor Pawley.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I just wanted a little bit of clarity. We're going for a recommendation to cap at 300. And we're also going for a recommendation for option 2, which can come out at 328,000. If we agree option 2, does that mean that Freedom Leisure have also agreed to stand by our decision this evening? Or could they say, well, that's going to cost us £28,000 more. If we go for option 3, it'll cost us £7,000 more. We'll go for option 3 and get rid of that activities communities manager post.
Ash.
Thank you, Chair. The £300,000 cap, Councillor Pawley, has been discussed with Freedom. That both Jeremy and Ian are well aware of our position. The costs are very difficult to predict in terms of how it will pan out over the coming months, because we don't know how many people are going to come through the door. So there is a range, an optimistic figure and then a more prudent one. We think it's a reasonable amount, and Freedom understand our position on that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Chapman.
Can I come back, please?
Sorry, did you have another question?
Well, I just wanted to come back because Ash really hasn't answered that question.
Ash?
Which point, Councillor Pawley?
The point is, could they decide to go for option 3 instead? That's what I'm asking.
No, this is a member decision, and Freedom are aware of that position. So if it's £300,000, it's everything that is outlined in option 2. It may cost more money, but we're saying the maximum the council is able to afford is 300,000. So we need to make that option work in 300,000. Does that answer your question, Councillor Pawley?
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Wakeman, I think, have you got your camera on? Can we do a sound check and camera for you? Have we lost you?
Yes, I've got my camera on.
Okay, good. Right, okay. Councillor Chapman, I've got on my list, please.
Sorry, Chair, I was preempting things. I'm really putting a hand up for debate rather than question.
Okay. Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm very concerned that is there a fallback plan, Ashley, if suddenly we get a second phase of the virus and it rears up suddenly? We've spent £300,000 and we might have to shut down again. So have we a plan to take into account this in any way?
That's a difficult one, Chair. I think it's challenging to predict what's going to happen in the coming months. I think the only thing that we can put forward is a current position. If that changes, then we will sit down with Jeremy and Ivan and Ian and look at what the situation is. It will depend on what the government guidance is. There are a number of variables, Councillor Slack. I think it's very difficult to answer that question with an absolute answer. I think, like we have done over the last few months, we've had to review each situation and circumstance on its own merit and take it from there. Sorry, I'm not trying to be evasive. I just think it's almost impossible to say what's going to happen in the next 3 months.
Can I just come back a moment, Ash? And thank you. If there was a second phase, we paid the £300,000 and there was a second phase and it was shut down, would we then go to we won't pay any more money out till in this financial year? Would it go through till next year, the shutdown, or stop shutdown, would it till April?
I think it's very difficult to say, Councillor Slack. I mean, the finance or the package that we're putting forward is to support us through the next 6 months in the current situation as we know it. If that changes, I think we have to assess that on its own merit. I don't anticipate the extra cost, but we don't know if a second wave is going to happen or what the impact of that would be. I'm really sorry. I don't think we're able to.
Thank you, Ash.
Councillor Ratcliffe.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Some comment just to begin with, and then a general question. I think it's very unfortunate, of course, that these two items of significant business should come to the council at the same time, and I'm pleased that you are separating them out for the purpose of debate and decision. One of these, clearly the one that we're dealing with now, is more demanding than the other, although they've both got financial implications. But this particular one seems to me to have much more and wider impact for residents and communities. I don't think anybody sitting here on this decision making this evening would have foreseen a year ago, when we accepted this contract, unless you were a soothsayer with a crystal ball in front of you, that we would have had this virus pandemic that's brought about this economic collapse, and therefore requiring our financial support for something, as I say, that at the time when we agreed it seemed so beneficial and negotiated in good faith. And now here we are, both parties really, with a spectre in front of us, that if we don't do something, we could lose our leisure centres, and that would be absolutely disastrous, I think, for our communities. So I'm very clear about where I'm going to be voting this evening, because I certainly don't want to be instrumental in losing our vital recreational facilities. But, you know, that possibility does exist, that either Freedom Leisure could close the contract and give it back to us, or we can walk away. And then, of course, we have to consider staff employment and protection, and other things too. And then, of course, there is at the back of all this still, I think, this thought that we might lose Bakewell swimming pool. We are hopefully going to go for an option that seems to have a temporary closure of that facility. But who's to say that events might not conspire against us where the permanent closure of Bakewell comes about? I echo what has already been said by you, Chair, about the excellent work that Ash and Becky and the other team members have put into this report, and indeed trying to come up with something that addresses all these issues. And it's very salutary, I think, to note again that over 60 questions were submitted prior to this report. So all the detail really has been hopefully gone through. And certainly I've spent a couple of hours looking back over them and the report. But there was something that I wanted to ask one of the representatives, if I could, of Freedom Leisure, just to outline again for us and give some general comment, because we do have members of the public who join our meetings or indeed the press. And they would, I think, want to know a little bit about the larger background, if you like. Freedom Leisure is a large national organisation. They're not just dealing with us, and no doubt they're not having to face our situation by itself. I would like to ask, therefore, is our situation comparable to other authorities? And perhaps a general comment from Jeremy or whoever on how others are reacting to their circumstances, and particularly the financial situation.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Radcliffe. Can I go through Ash, please?
Apologies. Thank you, Chair. Jeremy, are you all right to come in and pick up Councillor Radcliffe's query, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, we work with 19 partners across the UK, local authorities, and to date we've got 16 agreements. So yes, everybody's sort of in the same boat, unfortunately, at these challenging times. And both councils and ourselves have been sort of supported by the government in terms of the procurement notices to work together and support through this difficult time. Hence the sort of open book approach that we've all been taking. So yes, we have been fortunate enough to have very good relationships with our local authority partners. And hopefully that's borne through really in terms of the 16 agreements, similar to what we're discussing tonight, that we have in a place across the UK. And we've opened 57 sites out of around 100 units as of next Monday. So those agreements are starting to flesh out and are starting to be analysed on a weekly, monthly basis already. So that's the sort of overall picture of the company, and that was very important to us because we need to be in this together, if you like, both in terms of us as Freedom Leisure, but our partners that we work with, and that is coming to fruition now. We have this meeting tonight, and hopefully a positive decision coming out from this. We also have another of my council meetings tomorrow. So by the end of the week, we should be looking at 100% agreement, which means we can move forward more confidently and welcome a lot more of our residents back to the services.
Thank you very much. Councillor Flitter is next.
Thank you, Chair. I apologise. I thought I'd come in rather earlier, but I was expecting, before any debate, I was expecting a presentation from Freedom Leisure. Obviously, that's not the case. So I have a question for our officers and a couple for Freedom Leisure, if you don't mind. The first one to our officers, I wonder if you could just remind me about FMG Consulting. We got the monies from Sport England for that facility, but I'm just thinking about value for money. I mean, it doesn't take, it's not rocket science to come up with the three options that we've got in front of us tonight. So how much did that consultation cost? Was all the grant used? I'd be very interested to see that. And looking at 2.5 for Freedom Leisure, I have to agree with the concept that we've got to strike a balance here. I have many reservations, like Councillor Radcliffe and others that have spoken. But when we look back and dissect the figures, I'm just wondering whether it should be visitors or visits, because I work out that it's about 20% of our residents in the Dales that actually use the service. So therefore it becomes more important than a figure of 670,000 visitors. So taking that into consideration and looking at in the balance, I still haven't had an answer to my question, and that is that have we got a business plan that works for the next year or 2 or 3 years to stop or to enable Freedom Leisure from having to come back to the council and put this extra burden upon us?
Okay, so those are your 3.
No, that's 2. I've counted 2 there, Chairman.
Okay.
The third one is that on the recommendations, we do have the comment about the active communities manager. And I know we've got a paragraph on page 8, but what's the real evidence of that being even considered within the report? What impact would that have on our services? Thank you, Chair.
Ash, through you, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'll pick up the first point and then hand over to Jeremy. Just to pick up on a point of FMG, Councillor Fletcher, the funding that we sourced covered all of FMG's time and effort that they put into this. And Becky will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this was £4,900. So the council has not contributed anything other than the time to fill in the application for Sport England for it. I smile, Councillor Fletcher, because you say it looks like it's pretty easy to come up with those 3 recommendations that we put forward, and I wish it was. But there's actually quite a bit of complexity that sits behind the scenes there, because there's just for example, when we looked at Freedom's business case that they put forward to us when they were requesting the funds and the support, we have to look at each of those costs, look at what costs could be mitigated, which costs couldn't be mitigated. We did that in partnership, but it helps to have somebody that's independent to that process. I think it's fair to say that at times Freedom and the council had conflicting needs, so there's a need to find a common ground. It's looking at the demand from members of the public to us at the council, what we think the requirements are and what Freedom are looking to provide. So I think there's a lot more to it than probably meets the eye in terms of this report. And I say that with the greatest respect, but it's taken officers a lot of time and effort and our partners at Freedom to go through all the budget lines and consider different scenarios. And I make no secret of it. We've looked at a number of scenarios which included not opening some of the sites, not because that was our intention, but it would be remiss of us as officers not to look at every option, given the fact that we're talking about public money. So these have been discussions that have taken place for months, and a lot of hard work has gone into doing that. But I will pass over to Jeremy for your other 2 questions if I've covered your point, Councillor Fletcher.
Okay, Jeremy, please.
I'm going to pass over to Ian on this one. So Ian's going to come in terms of the business plan and active communities.
Yeah, thank you very much. In terms of the business plan for the next couple of years, what we intend to do, hopefully, and this is with a fair wind, and this is the same within all our contracts, is that we actually get back to the contract position towards the end of this financial year. Now, it may be that the income still isn't to the levels as it was pre-COVID, which is basically back in March. But this is where we're going to be working with Ash and the team to make sure that if the income levels aren't back, then we still manage to mitigate some of the costs. And I think if you look at the figures that we've provided from reopening in August, it does tail off in terms of the support. And so, and that's a very, very general concept across all of our 19 partners, is that we do hope to get back to the contract levels, February of 2021. I just really wanted to pick up also from a previous question, because I think it's quite relevant, is that the support that we're asking for in terms of the numbers for a rural district council such as yourselves is actually very, very similar to some of the other rural district councils that we operate in. So I just wanted to reassure you that it's not a lot different. So there was just clarifying on that. And I think your third question was on the active communities post. And this was a post that we did put into our submission a couple of years ago. Some partners that we've been working with have actually taken that post out because there's a cost saving. Some have been quite proactive in terms of they really believe that it will contribute to the physical and mental well-being improvement over the next several months as part of the community, particularly in some of the rural areas as well. So we actually see that as being quite a strong point that can work, not just perhaps what they were doing before, but wider within the Dales itself. So, you know, we see that there'll be lots of different projects and strands and partners to be working with that can actually benefit people from our physical and mental health and well-being going forward.
Okay, thank you very much. That's very helpful.
Can I just thank Ash and the team, please, Chairman. I think they've done a wonderful job on this, and it's all due credit to through these difficult times that we come to this situation.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Cruz, I've got next.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions from me. I think the ongoing financial sustainability question is probably on everybody's mind. So I'm just wondering at what point there'll be a kind of strategic review between the District Council and Freedom Leisure as partners, and at what point will that come back to Council? So that's my first question. My second question is, has Freedom Leisure given any thoughts into how they could drive income up? I mean, the online world has really taken off, and online classes and that type of thing. I'm just wondering if Freedom Leisure see opportunities there to drive their income line up. And there was one other question, which is probably a little bit more operational, a bit more near term. Matlock Baileyans Hockey Club have been in contact with me, and it's made me aware that Wirksworth in particular is a very important facility for a lot of our clubs that use AstroTurf outside. It affects a lot of residents. So really, I just wanted the team to give that good consideration in terms of making sure that the hours reflect the needs of the clubs. So really, you know, consult with the clubs would be my request. I think it could have a positive impact on a lot of residents, and it wouldn't drive a lot of cost to look at the opening hours, particularly in Wirksworth and particularly at the AstroTurf. So they're my three questions, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Ash.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take the first one, and then I'll hand over again, if I may, on the more specific ones to the running of the facilities. In terms of your first point, Councillor Cruz, with the finance review, what we're proposing as part of this, and we touched on it early on, is the open book accounting. So on a monthly basis, which we do anyway, you know, pre-COVID, our contract manager, who is Becky, will meet with Freedom's contract manager, and they will look at the performance of not just the contract, but sites, the financial performance, the safety standards. They will go ahead as normal, and there'll be a keen focus on that returning back to that position that Ian's touched on in his previous response. On top of that, I suppose there's an added layer of well, not safeguarding, but of review, because of the open book accounting. Karen Henriksen and the accounts team will be looking at that performance as well. So I'm quietly confident that we've got all the bases covered on that. We have a good relationship with Freedom. It is very open. If there are issues, they're quick to let us know that there are some things that we need to talk about. So I don't anticipate that relationship being any different from this point on. I'll hand over to Jeremy for the other 2 points, if I may.
Jeremy?
Thanks, Ash. Yeah, in terms of driving income, absolutely. I think you heard Ian there. Our intention is to try and get to pre-COVID levels. towards the end of the financial year, and that's going to come with a lot of hard work. And yes, the growth of online across the industry really has been really important, how people have engaged at home during lockdown, and we want to sort of definitely capture that as part of a sort of blended approach, really. I think it's not the be all and end all. I think what we've seen since other sites have come back is that social contact that the centres provide is really important from a class point of view. I think we should also remember the investments that the partnership has made into the facilities over the last 18 months. So, there are some fantastic facilities that, again, we would want to re-showcase and ensure that people come back through the doors, really. And on the clubs, absolutely. We'll be consulting far and wide, really, in terms of working with those key partners and stakeholders in the community to enable their reactivation and their extensive use of the facilities. It is a great opportunity, I think, for us all now to reignite health, well-being, sport, leisure, both from a physical and a social, mental well-being point of view. So absolutely on all those counts.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gamble, you're next.
Sorry, Chair, I did ask a question about the Worksworth facility and just...
Oh, the Worksworth and the hockey, yeah.
Yes, please, if you could just come back on that.
Yeah, sorry, I was perhaps being a bit too general on that. Engaging with the stakeholders, being the hockey club at Worksworth or other clubs across the borough, really. So, once we have a sort of a timetable of reactivation, if you like, then clearly that work's going to start straight away in terms of filling those slots and looking to develop the programme in partnership with those key stakeholders. So I've made a note of the Matlock Hockey Club playing at Worksworth, and I'll share that with the area manager tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. If you could be pertinent with your questions, please. We've got lots of people to speak. Councillor Gamble.
Oh, hi. Right. I think we submitted questions, but I had a few of mine come back with Freedom Leisure to answer. So is this my opportunity to ask these now? Right. Staff is described as on furlough. Does this mean made redundant? Have those staff already been made redundant? And if so, could you tell me how many have been made redundant and how many staff have been retained? I did, after I put it in, I did ask this for each centre. I realised that probably on the night, that's probably a bit much, isn't it? And also, because I'm new to this and I don't know the management structure of Freedom Leisure, what is the management structure? Are you a limited company? Are you, and do you have CEOs? Do you have directors? How is it actually run, and what's at the top of the tree? And also, and actually coming back on something that Councillor Cruz brought up. There's been a lot of private fitness people have been running online from word go. I've got friends here with private people who have not missed a class because their people they use went straight to Zoom. Did you do nothing like that in the meantime? Have you? And also going back to Councillor Slack's question about the 300,000. Now, is this set in stone? Even if every centre gets closed, if we do have another lockdown? And then another question I did put in earlier, the legal implications. We've been sort of given information, I think, that if we don't stump up this money, that Freedom Leisure will want to withdraw the service, and that there'll be legal implications for the council if this happens. Can I ask, if we don't give the money tonight, and if Freedom Leisure then decide to withdraw the service, who will be legally counted as being breaching contract in that scenario? Okay, and that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Go to Ash, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and pick up a number of points, but I'll probably have to pass over to Jeremy regarding the online works and the management structure of Freedom and the furloughing of or staff that have been retained. In terms of the £300,000 question, Councillor Gamble, the answer remains the same. It's almost impossible to give an answer to that because we don't know what is going to happen in the next few months. We can only deal with what's in front of us. If the centres are shut down again, then we need to have a conversation. But we're asking members to commit no more than £300,000, and that's why we've placed a cap on that. But that is based on the current situation. If that changes, just like other things that we've discussed over the last few months, we'll have to review the situation and most likely come back to members with some recommendations and a proposal. In terms of the legal implications, I don't know if any of my legal colleagues want to come in on this, but my understanding of the situation is it's about what is reasonable given the current situation. So if, I think it's safe to say when we first went out to the market and we asked members what it was that they were looking for in their leisure service, what came through loud and clear was that you didn't necessarily want to have private sector leisure operator. You favoured a not-for-profit based partnership approach. And granted, this is a number of years ago now since we made that decision. But that's what we did, and that's the route that we've taken. And Freedom Leisure operate on very, very fine margins. They are a not-for-profit organisation, so they don't have hordes of capital funds and revenue like possibly some of the private sector operators do have. So we've got to accept that if we don't provide support, Freedom have been quite clear that financially this will be a very challenging situation for them, and it's highly likely that we'll be sat at the table looking at that contract. Now, the advice that we've received, and again, like I say, legal colleagues can correct me on this, but it will be determined by what is reasonable given the current circumstance. These are unprecedented times. The contract does not cover, but it discusses situations that may arise, such as a pandemic, for example, and it's about being reasonable on both sides. So it would be a discussion between the legal teams as to what is reasonable and what is not. I'll hand over to Jeremy or Ian for the response on the other point, if I may.
Who's going to take that?
I'll go first with the unfurloughing and the online bit, and then Ian follow up with the management structure, etc. So yeah, in terms of unfurloughing staff, there were a group of staff who have casual contracts, so they're not obliged to accept work and we're not obliged to provide work. So structured around that actually finished their furlough at the end of July. So those are casual staff. Now, obviously, we can't continue with those casual staff not having a service to deliver. And what we've obviously said to those group of staff is that when the service does reactivate, then and their services, whether that's a particular class or activity, comes back, then we will be looking to re-engage those staff at the earliest opportunity and grow that back to the pre-COVID levels. In terms of the exact number, I don't have that with me tonight, unfortunately, but we can share that with Ash and the team, and hopefully provide that over the coming days. In terms of the online situation, I think the challenge for us with our partners like yourselves was to mitigate as much cost during the lockdown and close down period as possible, and that meant furloughing as many staff as we could, and that then leaves very little, if any, resource to actually deliver things ourselves, because that would be a direct cost to the partnership. But what we've noticed, like yourself really, that some freelance instructors etc have developed, whereas they may have perhaps worked in one of our sites previously, they've carried on off their own back, if you like, their online presence. And going back to the previous question about growing income, then yeah, we want to obviously make sure we optimize any opportunities around the online presence as our staff come back into the service.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got several people. I know some.
Sorry, could I come back just a query?
Well, I think you've had your chance. We've got 6 or 7 other people.
Can I have
I beg your pardon, but we've had your chance. We've got lots of other people who want to
So
contribute.
everyone else gets that clarification, but I don't.
I'm sorry, but I think you've had your answer to your question, sir. I'd like to now move on, please. I'd like to go to Councillor O'Brien, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I've got 3 questions. Firstly, for Karen Henriksen as Director of Resources.
Sorry, Councillor O'Brien, did you table these earlier? Or these supplementary ones, as it were?
No, these are new ones.
Right, if you could be as brief as possible, because I've got lots of people, please.
I will do. So this is a question for Karen. As the Council's principal professional financial advisor, can you confirm that there is at least a medium risk of the Council being asked for further funding to support Freedom Leisure after the 6-month period? Question for Karen. 2 questions for Ashley. Clarifications, really, questions. There's a statement in your email, Ash, which says that Freedom Leisure are able to take further action if projected income is not actioned. Does this mean that if they choose to, Freedom Leisure could close Blakewell swimming pool at any time during the 6 months? I'd like a yes or no answer to that question. My third question for Ash relates to the information presented in the Council report under options 1 and 2, and the information in Ash's reply by email. I want to make sure they're both saying the same thing. In the report, option 1 tells us that the funding gap is, let's say, £695,000. But that would be on the basis that the leisure centres are part open. In the email reply that Ash sent to us all, he says that in fact that 695,000 is based on the pre-COVID-19 position, which is when the leisure centres were fully open.
Okay, is that in the email that came this afternoon? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I'm asking which is correct. Is the suggestion, is the statement in the report that option 1 costs 695,000, but only has the leisure centres part open, whereas in the email reply, Ash tells us that the 695,000 actually relates to a situation where the centres are fully open.
Ash, can I go to you first? Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Ash.
Yes, thank you, Chair. If I may, just the first point, can Freedom close Bakewell swimming pool? No, is the answer, and I don't imagine they'd want to do that either. That a decision like that would be something that we'd want to put in front of members. I think Jeremy touched on the point in terms of action. It's about growth. It's in nobody's interest to reduce services once we start opening. We're trying to encourage people to come through the doors, to build up the revenue so we can get back to a fully open position, as Ian outlined earlier in his response. With regards to the question on option 1, it's option 1 is open fully, not partly. So option 1 is to return to pre-COVID situations, so full opening hours of all centres, whereas option 2 is what we're suggesting is a part open of those. So apologies if that was confusing, Councillor O'Brien.
Okay, thank you very much. So we've now got to Councillor Martin Burford. Councillor Martin Burford, where are you?
Yes, thank you, Chair. 2 of my questions have been answered already, But the third one relates to paragraph 1.4 and the fact that currently leisure providers are exempt from most COVID-19 emergency support funding because they have a rateable value above 51,000. So how can someone explain how this can be justified, bearing in mind that all leisure centres are going to have a relatively high rateable value? So how is this decision of government justified, and is it not completely unfair, because it inevitably means that the buck will stop with this council and we'll have to pick up the funding for, or the tab for funding this particular problem?
Thank you, Ash.
To be honest, Chair, I'm not sure I can comment on government policy. I don't think I'm best placed to do that. I'm happy to take a view from Ian if he'd like to add anything to that, but I think that's a difficult one for us to answer, Chair.
Yeah, I think the support provided in that is to do with much smaller facilities, and we do have, I think we have 5 facilities of a rateable value which is less than 53,000 in Wales, where we have been able to get some small grants for that. Unfortunately, we as an organisation, we do sit in between. We're sort of not big enough for or appropriate for some support, and we're actually too small for some of the others. So we have sort of sat right in the middle here. But I just really do want to reiterate that during the closure period of the 3 months, we have had support from all of our 19 local authority clients, and as I say earlier, that through the reactivation piece, we have been really encouraging and getting councils to get on board, because as you quite rightly say, it's not fair if you provide support and the others don't. So we've very much been quite, I suppose, tough in a way on that to make sure that some aren't, if you like, getting away with it and relying on support from others, because that's only fair, we think.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got Councillor Purdy next.
Thank you, Chair. My question is to Jeremy, please. Jeremy, as leader, I've been pushing very strongly through all of the leaders in the country who are in a similar position to ours with regard to contract leisure services, and they've all been singing the same tune, and that is to pressure government for relief on this. Now, there's been stories that some monies are coming out. My view on this is that I think that there's too many questions being asked, quite frankly. I think that we started a journey with you a few years ago, which has been very beneficial to this authority. I believe that you've increased custom, and I think that members ought to be aware that questions on business and directorships and so forth could be privileged information, and it's not right to test that. I think what we need to understand is that there is a partnership here, which is very much welcomed by myself as leader and the chief exec and the staff, and that it's a journey that we've found interrupted through COVID, through no fault of our own, and we're therefore in the same bed together. So the only way we can move this forward, in my view, is to move this recommendation option 2 tonight, and then see what happens. We can't best guess the future. We can't best guess what's going to happen tomorrow. There is a fear of COVID return, of course there is, but we've got to try and get life back to normal, and it's in your best interest to increase membership and increase custom. So my question simply is, I presume you're aware of the moves by leaders and the local government association to try and get some government relief. From your side, have you made any pressure or any attempts to try and get that relief from government? So that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, absolutely. We are part of our sort of trade body, Community Leisure UK, working with Sport England and UK Active. So those sort of 3 key bodies really are in daily, weekly talks with central government, DCMS, etc., and have put in a submission for, I think, approximately £800 million of relief for the sector as a whole, which would filter back into local government. So yeah, on all fronts really, there are large campaigns, and you would have hopefully seen some of the save leisure campaigns on Twitter and things like that, that are all part of the process of engagement with the key players in government and in industry, really. So yes, we've been working closely with the local government association across England and Wales to get our message across, really, and to share the impact that we do have, and that it's a good investment for them to make for the future of the country.
Good to hear. Thanks, Jeremy. We'll keep the pressure on.
Thank you. So can I just get back to Karen Henriksson to answer the first question that Peter O'Brien tabled?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor O'Brien asked about the risk assessment for Freedom Leisure coming back with a further request for funding after this 6-month period. I have to agree that I would assess this risk as medium, and that's based on the fact that for the next 6 months we really don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if there'll be a second wave of coronavirus. We don't know if there'll be another lockdown. So being a very cautious person, as members know I am, I would err on the side of assessing this as medium. If there were another lockdown, as previously been described by Ash, then we would need to work with Freedom to see what steps are needed and if any further financial support is needed. However, I do note that Ian Morey of Freedom gave an indication today that he hopes to be back on track by February, March, and that's quite positive to me. So, as we've already said, we'll be monitoring the financial position carefully with Freedom, but at this stage, I would assess that risk as medium.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Wayne.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I did get to my, and I'd like to thank Ash for the responses he's given me to the questions that I did ask. I just want to seek a bit of clarity about one, if that's okay with you. It's just in relation to the insurance that companies can take out for interruption. And he did say that the District Council, before it handed over to the Freedom Leisure, they did have business interruption insurance. And then it was left to the individual companies to decide whether or not they would want to take out business interruption insurance. Would we be in this position now? And I do realise that there's a lot of things going through the civil courts in relation to the pandemic and business interruption insurance, but would we be in this position now had the companies, and I'm saying it because we split, but it's relating to both, would we be in that same position now and discussing this matter had they got that insurance? Thank you.
That's for Ash.
Thank you.
To be honest, Chair, I'd like to either bring Karen in on this or Ian, if I may. They're better placed to answer this than I am.
That's fair enough. Which of you would like? Ladies first. Karen.
I think the answer to that lies in the fact that the council, first of all, prior to going out to outsourcing to Freedom, the council did have business interruption insurance for leisure centres, and we did consider as part of the specification whether to require that. But in some cases, if a contractor has large balances of its own, large amounts of monies in reserve, it's not cost effective to require them to take out insurance, because that's an additional cost that will be passed on to us as the council as part of the contract. And it's not necessary if they've got large balances that they can effectively use to self-insure. So we didn't require it as part of the contract based on the value for money. In respect to the second question about whether it would have been beneficial to have it now, I can only answer that on the basis that the council itself does still have business continuity insurance to cover any additional expenses for any additional expenses from business interruption. But our insurers have advised us that that's only intended to cover
where there's a loss arising from a physical event, such as the closure of a leisure centre or the closure of a building after a fire or flood, or where it's as a result of a notifiable disease, as specified. Now, COVID-19 wasn't specified in the insurance schedule, and I think that's the point where there are a lot of court cases now. But our insurers are telling us that we are not covered, and I'm sure Ian can comment about Freedom, but I expect the position is similar.
Ian, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I'll respond briefly on that, but I totally agree with Karen. Most leisure operators do have business interruption insurance, but generally over the years, it's that applies to if a building burns down and it's the replacement costs of that building. There are clauses related to notifiable diseases, but again, what we found is that the disease, i.e. COVID, needs to have happened at that particular site. And so it really does muddy the waters. We are having ongoing discussions, as are some of our partner operators around this, but we're not really getting very far with it, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Finesse.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. If we go for option 2, what's the financial effect on the staff at Bakewell Centre? Are they furloughed? Are some of them furloughed? Will some of them not get any salary whatsoever for the 2 months? Can you tell me what the current situation is with them? Thank you.
Jeremy or Ian are best placed to answer that, because obviously they've managed that arrangement.
Yeah, if I can start, the reason we actually did that with Bakewell was so that we could work within the furlough scheme, and actually make it more affordable for everyone to actually keep it shut, because as people probably know, it runs out at the end of October. So this was probably, in a funny sort of way, the most cost efficient way of doing it, even though for a service for those that live in Bakewell, it probably isn't for them. But that's the reason why we actually went down that route, so that we could keep staff on furlough. Obviously, I think Jeremy has mentioned earlier is in terms of some of our casual staff, we've been unable to do that, but we can provide you with numbers on that. But in essence, to keep within the furlough scheme, any of the costs, because it does change in August, September, and October. All of those have been factored into the figures that we've provided to Ash and to Becky.
Okay,
so are there many? Can I just come back on that, Chair? Are there many staff there who are on furloughed, i.e. sort of on casual contracts? You may not know that.
I think, Chair, we could probably come back with figures. I mean, what I can say from our time managing the sites, that Bakewell has obviously one of the smallest groups of staff in the establishment, smaller site. So obviously the number of casual staff is relative to that. It's still an impact, and it's one that we would want to avoid if we could, but it won't be a high number of people, but I can circulate those numbers at a later date.
Okay, thanks, Ash.
Councillor Sue Burfoot.
Thank you, Chair. Can I first of all say that I think it's absolutely crucial that leisure centres are kept open. But I have got 3 questions. Can I ask whether the refreshment facilities will be able to be open at the leisure centres? And can I also ask whether we, at the time that the leisure centres were outsourced, I did have concerns, as did lots of other members, but would we have been in the same position if we kept them in-house? And the third question is that I did feel it was unfortunate that Councillor Gamble didn't get an answer to her question, about management structure. So could we have a brief outline of what the management structure is of Freedom Leisure, in answer basically to what Councillor Gamble didn't get an answer to?
Okay, Ash.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take the point about outsourcing and whether it would have been better to retain the service or not, and then I'll hand over to the guys from Freedom for the refreshment facilities and management structure, if I may. In short, Councillor Burfoot, where would we be if we'd have retained the service, and that is financially worse off than we are now. There would still be tough decisions to make in this circumstance. It's very difficult to say what those costs would be because we haven't needed to cost that up because that isn't the situation. But I think what would be useful for members to look back on is the actual saving that we made by outsourcing the service in the first place. It was a significant amount of money to the council over the period of the contract, and it far outweighs the numbers that we're talking about today. So it's difficult to answer a direct comparison if we were in the same situation, but I don't think we should lose sight of those extra costs that we'd have certainly been carrying had this situation not occurred as well. So it would have been a significant amount more than where we are today, but I'll hand over to Freedom if I can.
Okay, thank you.
If I can come in, the next question around the catering, the answer is yes to catering and following the strict guidelines that will apply to that. It has been interesting that since we have opened some facilities from the 25th of July, actually the catering service has been by far the quietest part of the service. The classes, in the aerobics studio, etc., have been really popular in the gym and the swimming, but it's been noticeable that the catering has been very, very quiet. So that may be something that we would speak to Ash and the team about on an ongoing basis there. And in terms of the structure, as was mentioned earlier, we are a not-for-profit registered charity, registered with HMRC. We started in 2002 with 4 centres within Wealdon District Council in East Sussex, which is very, very similar to Derbyshire Dales, 4 market towns. And we have a board of trustees where we have 8 trustees who in effect are the directors of that. In terms of the management structure, it's we have a managing director who oversees, who would have been on this call, but he's actually away at the moment on holiday, back on Friday. And then we have an executive management team of 8 of us that run the business. So all the surpluses are retained because we're not for profit, and in effect, all the governance is managed by our trustees with a chair of trustees as well.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that, finally, I've got Councillor Hill. I hope I've lost you.
Thank you. Sorry, I was just unmuting. So obviously, I'm a Bakewell ward member, not very happy at all. Yet again, we are the poorer neighbour. I cannot believe that it would cost so much money to keep Bakewell open for months 1 and 2. And just one note. Have you looked at the options of having a free bus for the Bakewell residents to go down to Matlock on a daily basis, a free of charge bus? Something to consider. You've got to remember that Bakewell is, majority are older people, so they don't have cars, and to them Bakewell swimming is quite a lifeline to them. And just one other thing that is irrelevant, but I think it's just something to note. We have got some of the busiest car parks where we are financially supporting the council with our car parks, as is our market is financially supporting other markets in our district so they can stay open. Just something to take consideration. And that's about it. I will be voting the way that I feel residents of Bakewell will want me to vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hill. Ash?
Yeah, I understand Councillor Hill's frustrations to an extent, but the intention is to get Bakewell back online. I mean, I think we've also got to accept that Bakewell presents some challenges in terms of making sure that we adhere to social distancing as well. We're talking small numbers in there, but that's not to say that it's not as important. We do want to get to that point, but we need, and I think Ian's kind of touched on this point, try and get the money in to try and support the rest of the service and build it up, and that's the intention. So we're not treating it as a poor relation. I don't agree with that point at all. I think it's a sensible approach, although it might not be one that we would have wanted to have to consider. I accept that, but it is a sensible approach. And I don't think we can look at Bakewell in isolation. And in reference to the car parks and the markets, again, Councillor Hill, with respect, I don't agree with, because that money goes into the council's coffers, not into Bakewell, a section of the supporting Bakewell as a town. It goes into the coffers as a whole. With regards to putting a bus on, I'm happy to pass over to Jeremy or Ian, but my particular view is that there's already public transport. Would we want to introduce a free bus and put people on a bus where there's also a risk of cross-infection for a short period of time? It's an unfortunate situation. I fully accept that, but I also think that what's been put forward is reasonable, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. We're moving to debate. Councillor Tony Morley. Tony Morley, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, colleagues. I would like to move that we accept this report as it's written and take on option 2. I'd like to thank members who have taken the trouble to write in and do the asking before we actually got here, because it enabled us to get on through the debate quickly. I'd also like to say that I'm dreadfully disappointed that members can come to this sort of debate with a lack of knowledge of the organisation at which we're speaking. It took me 30 seconds to look them up, to find out that the managing director is Ian Horsfall-Turner, that they're a not-for-profit organisation, they've got 16.5 million visitors, to find out what their turnover is, and so on and so on. Don't think that people who are watching us aren't doing the same thing. It does not reflect well on any of us to come to a meeting with no information. But I'm moving the...
We're moving the first 3, aren't you, on page 3, 1, 2 and 3. And I've got Councillor Chapman next.
Chair, I'll second that, and I will also add to Tony's comments about some of the questions which I consider have been particularly facile. I mean, do councillors not think that our officers will have stringently looked at the management structure of the leisure company? Do they not think that that's one of the first and most major important questions as to how a company that we are becoming involved with and such an important service will have not had? Do they think it's run out of a garden shed? For goodness sake, please, councillors, have a little faith in our officers. So I'm happy to second that, Chair. And also I'd like to add, please don't ask our officers how COVID-19 is going to pan out in the next 3 months. If they knew that, they'd not be working for this council.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Bright next.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I didn't get to ask a couple of questions, but what I would request is that if it's possible for the Freedom team to potentially get back to me or to all the councillors with the answers, that'd be great if possible. So I don't need any detail now, but my questions were, how would you get the feedback back from the public on the opening hours, and how would you implement the changes? And how are you looking to re-engage with the customers who have unfortunately moved to other gyms in the earlier parts of July? I don't need an answer now, but if that could be fed back some way to the council, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Okay, I've got Councillor Gamble next. Councillor Gamble.
Actually, I think my questions I've got have been answered, actually, so all right.
Okay, thank you very much. And I've got Councillor O'Brien next.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move an amendment to the proposal. The amendment arises because as Ash has been gracious enough to admit, the information in the report is not 100% accurate, in that we don't actually have an option for the cost of opening Bakewell Leisure Centre and Pool in month 1. The option we have, as Ash has said, relates back to a pre-COVID-19 situation. So we're not, as members, given the opportunity to look at the option of opening all 4 leisure centres with reduced hours. So my amendment, which I think is unfortunate, because Bakewell is seen as being the poor relation of the 4 leisure centres. We've seen the amount of use, particularly that children get out of it, and to deprive them of the use of the pool for 2 months without us as members being given information as to how much it would actually cost to open it for those 2 months, I think is unfortunate. So my amendment, trying to be positive, is that we ask Freedom Leisure to provide us with the costs of the true costs of the option of opening Bakewell Swimming Pool in month 1, along with the other centres, and that the corporate leadership team, in collaboration with the political group leaders, are delegated to accept this if they consider the additional cost to represent value for money, and that the additional cost is partially offset by not maintaining the ACM post for the first 4 months.
Well, I'm going to have to go to Lee Gardner on the validity, please. Lee, I wonder if you could just comment, please, on that amendment before I ask.
Yeah, I was just looking up amendments. It says she referred to the matter to the appropriate body for consideration, to leave words out and insert others, and should be to insert or add words. That seems like a completely new recommendation.
Yes.
With respect, Chair, it's an amendment to the recommendation to accept option 2. It's to accept option 2, but with an additional proposal, which, as I said, is to ask Freedom Leisure to provide us with the cost of opening Bakewell Pool in month 1, and that decision to whether to accept that to be delegated to CLT and group leaders. I say this because we simply have not been given that we've been given option 1, but it's not actually.
Can I just say again?
So, Chair, to me, this sounds like a completely new and separate recommendation. If I was writing this report, I would have except 1 and another item, number 2, for Freedom Leisure to do X. To me, this sounds like a new recommendation that doesn't add or leave out words to the original one. And I don't think this is a relevant recommendation or amendment.
We have now got this moved and seconded, and I'm just trying to see if I've got anybody else on my list now. I have. No, no, Councillor Bright, you've been. Got anyone else? I'd just like to go to Councillor Purdy. Sorry, you've indicated.
Thank you, Philly. I was going to raise a point of order because it's a fundamental change. It's not in line with the recommendations. So I certainly, and I'm sure my group, won't support this amendment. I think we need to cut to the chase and vote in option 2 and show support for Freedom Leisure and our officers. Right.
I'm afraid, I mean, I'm trying to be as fair as possible, Councillor O'Brien, and I take advice from the officers on this. And as you know, we've been in the past with this, and you have put in amendments and things like that, but I don't think that's valid tonight, I'm afraid. Okay, so sorry, Councillor Gamble, did you want to say something, or have you got your hand up wrongly?
No, can I just ask, In which case, I'm slightly confused as to how massively different Councillor O'Brien's proposal is from option 1. Can I just ask a question just out of curiosity? Would we have been able to vote option 1 in, since it was actually presented as one of the options?
Well, at the moment, we have a proposal on the table. I'm about to go to the vote for the recommendation, which includes option 2 of the report, as you see on page 3 of our papers. And I'm inclined now to go to the vote, please.
I have asked to speak, Chair.
Of course, Councillor Flitter.
Could I speak as well? I've been putting my hand up about 3 times and I've not been able to speak.
1 second. Councillor Anderson, are you using the participation bit on the right-hand side?
I'm using the hand up. That's the only thing I've been told to do.
Are you using the yellow one or the blue one? Sorry.
Yellow.
Right. Okay. So that's why I haven't seen you. And I beg.
Okay.
Okay. I'll. If we just may, if I can just, if you go to the bottom, you get participants. There's 51 of us. Okay. Click on that. Okay. And then you'll find the participants all listed on the right-hand side. And then I think at the bottom right, it says raise hand. That's it. Right. Councillor Allison, I beg your pardon. Right. Now we've got it.
Thank you, Chair. It's interesting, actually, because somebody kept taking my hand down. I don't know who was doing that. So somebody obviously acknowledged that I had my hand up. I'd just like to come back to Councillor Hill's point, actually, that she made about laying on public transport to local leisure centres. Doveridge is 11 miles from our nearest leisure centre, which is Ashbourne. There's no public transport that links us to that area to use those facilities. So if there is consideration for a bus to be laid on to take residents to their nearest leisure centre, I'd like something to be considered for Doveridge as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Flitter.
The CLT team for doing some sterling work on this. I know it's not been easy. It's not been easy for anybody. But they have gone through this, and I'm taking my decision tonight on trust that they have seen the relevant information that they need to see to make this judgment through their professional expertise. Like Councillor Purdy and others, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. We don't know what COVID means to various operations in the area. But I do believe, and I differ here, that in any situation, if you haven't got that business plan in front of you, if you're not hitting your targets throughout the year, then at some stage you have to stop digging, because that's a larger hole to get out of, and the repercussions will be for this council. So please, I'm employing the CLT team to keep a close eye on this, but I do intend to support the recommendation of recommendation 2, because it's the trust within them that I'm going with. Okay. But I am upset a little bit at the moment, because we've just heard 2 members having a go at other members of this council, and I think that is wrong. Members are feeling that these important questions need to be asked, and they have done their homework, and I think it's very unfair to be criticised in a public arena for doing the job that they are elected to do. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So finally, I've got Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Yes, I will support this, Chair, but this £300,000. But if it comes again in a short period of time, I won't be able to support it. We aren't a bottomless pit. We can't keep just producing money, but I will support it tonight. Like Councillor Flitter just said, I'm astonished at some councillors criticising other councillors for raising their points of view. It's a democratic society, and we should respect this and respect other people's views, even if we don't agree with it. So thank you, Chair, and I will support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, we'll now move to the vote. Jackie, please. Remember, it's alphabetical. Please, can you shout out your very clearly for, against, or abstain. Please. Jackie, please.
Can I just check, Chair? Councillors Archer and Wakeman, I'm not sure they were here for the whole discussion.
Yeah, I heard the whole discussion. That was fine.
You did. Councillor Wakeman.
Councillor Wakeman, did you hear the whole discussion? Sorry. Yeah, I think he can hear us, but
It's been coming and going, I think.
yeah, we may have to discount his vote. I think that's probably the best policy because he's sort of frozen on me. Let's start. Let's do the vote.
We'll probably have a break.
I would recommend you, Chair, that we discount Councillor Wakeman. Sorry.
Fine. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Allison.
Abstain.
Archer. Oh.
4.
Atkin.
4.
Bright.
4.
Buckler.
4.
Bull. 4. Martin Burfoot.
4.
Sue Burfoot. 4. Chapman.
4.
Cruz.
4.
Donnelly.
4.
Fitzherbert.
4.
Flitter.
4.
Froggatt. 4. Finesse.
4.
Gamble.
Against.
Hill.
Abstain.
Hobson.
4.
Hughes.
4.
Lees.
4.
Tony Morley.
4.
Michelle Morley.
4.
O'Brien.
Abstain.
Corley.
4.
Purdy.
4.
Ratcliffe.
4.
Rose.
4.
Salt.
4.
Shirley.
4.
Black.
4.
Statham.
4.
Sutton.
Abstain.
Swindle.
4.
Wayne.
4.
So that's 1 against, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 30 in favour, 1 against, 4 abstentions.
Thank you very much. Moving on to Ash and Serco. Thank you very much to the representatives from Freedom. So I'd like to move on, Ash, about the Serco points, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just to remind members of the recommendations before we get into questions. Again, thank you for your questions in advance. We tried to answer as many as we could in the time frame. We do have Ronnie Coots with us and Annette Joyce to help support the debate.
Okay, sorry, can I just stop you a sec? Councillor Burford has requested a 5-minute break. Lee, can I just check, because we're sort of we're in mid. Lee, is that legally possible?
Chair, if you wish to, being that Ash has only just started speaking, we've not really got into it. As long as Ash has got no objection to a quick 5-minute break, I can't see any problem if he doesn't mind restarting.
Right. Okay. Can we return at 8:40? Sorry, 7:40. So that's 6 minutes. 6 minutes if you want to break, Councillor Burford. So I beg your pardon.
Chair, can I ask everybody to mute during the break, please?
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Sorry, Sue, Councillor Sue Burford. Sorry, I didn't see your note until just then. But anyway, I think we're all back at our positions now. It's 7:40, 20 to 8. And we have lost David Chapman, I think. And I think we're about to lose Peter O'Brien. So farewell for them for the evening. And now, Ash, please, on the Serco points in our agenda.
Thank you, Chair. Just to recap on the recommendations. It is recommendation 4, which is to provide financial support to Serco to support the implementation of the new contract due to impact of delays in the process associated to the challenge of the contract and COVID-19. There's also recommendation 5, similar to the Freedom Leisure arrangement, where we are recommending that we cap the level of financial support to Serco to £101,185. As much as I really appreciate the acknowledgement from members, I think it's only fair at this point to pass much of the credit on the Serco work and the implementation of the new contract to Steve Capes, who has really been at the heart of getting this contract over the line, and he's kept us all on track and well behaved. It has been a full team effort, but I thought it was appropriate to thank Steve and pass some credit to him. He's also available along with Ronnie Coots, who's the Managing Director of the Environmental Services team at Serco, and Annette Joyce, who's the Regional Director and responsible for the Derbyshire Dales contract. So happy to take questions, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Ratcliffe.
Right, thank you, Chair. I mean, this Serco dilemma is again a question of financial support, and the second one this evening. So clearly, we have to treat this cautiously, as it were, explore and make a decision, and keep an eye on our finances for the future, because this is a small authority and our income is not great. However, in this particular case, again, we're faced with a COVID-19 impact, in this particular case about new service delivery. And whilst it's something that we would rather have not had put before us, there's very little that we can do. But no doubt, like me, members would feel a sense of frustration at being asked for further monies, apparently after the completion of a contract. But again, as I say, there's very little flexibility in how we can respond. So, as previously, I shall be supporting the recommendation. However, I would like to just ask a question, if I may, of Ash and his team. And it's for, if you would, Ash, some comment on paragraph 2.28 in your report, and to ask, is the information that you've given us here verifiable in the sense of it being subject to future circumstances?
Right. I think, can you put yourselves on mute, please, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't? And Ash, are you ready for that one?
Did you hear my question, Ash?
I couldn't hear the last part of it, Councillor Ratcliffe.
Okay, I'll just repeat it. Paragraph 2.2 sets quite an optimistic scenario for the future about the new service vehicles that will eventually emerge and are going to be supported by the funding, as it were, to Serco. The information that you've given us, is it verifiable in terms of future circumstances? In other words, what sort of guarantee can you place on that information that these service vehicles are eventually going to make us money?
I can give my view, Councillor Ratcliffe, based on the discussions that we've had, and I can invite colleagues from Serco to come and give us more experience, because they have more experience in that field. But we are aware that there is a residual value, often at the end of the life. What that is at this moment in time, I suppose we were able to predict with a snapshot, but in 10 years' time, hopefully with the evolution of battery-powered refuse collection vehicles, that might have an impact. There are so many different factors, but yes, we anticipate there being a value at the end. Could I ask either Ronnie or Annette just to come and fatten out the response a little bit, please?
Of course.
Sorry, I wasn't sure whether Ronnie was picking this question up. So it's Annette Joyce, the Regional Director for Serco. Hello, everyone. I lost Zoom slightly earlier, so I'm not sure if you can see me, but I can certainly see you all now. And I think this refers to the new vehicles coming in and what their residual worth will be at the end of the contract. And I'm assuming that that's correct. So we have had very detailed calculations and depreciated the vehicles over its lifetime. So we're very confident with what the vehicles should be worth at the end of contract if we're talking about the new vehicles and not the existing old vehicles that we're currently utilising at the moment, which I think we're suggesting have got a depreciation value of around £100 to £200 per month. But there is some detailed calculations behind this, which Steve Cates will be privy to, and the wider local authority.
Okay,
Chair, if I may, it's Steve here, Chair. If I may, I promise not to share those detailed calculations with you just at the moment, but no. just to reiterate that as Ash and Annette have said, that the vehicles will have a value at the end of the 7.5 to 8 years, and that value will be greater than it would have been if they had been in use for the whole 8 years. But how much that is, we can't say at this time.
Okay. Has anybody else got any other questions as we go to debate? Let's go to Councillor Purdy, please. Councillor Purdy.
Thank you, Chair. Lots of questions have been asked in the background, so I'd like to thank Annette and your other colleague. I'm sorry, what's your name? I'm looking for you now, Ronnie. Thank you very much for attending. I'm sure members can ask questions after this piece, but I'm going to move the recommendation. It's another one of those situations that's COVID thrown at us most unexpectedly. And for the benefit of the new members, if we go back a few years, like 8 years, it was a buyer's market in the waste industry, and that this council gained great benefit. But since the plastics scenario and China didn't take any more plastic, excuse the pun, the bottom dropped out of the waste market. And I'm well aware that the companies like Serco have been carrying a loss on this. So it's another trust of partnership issue here. And that's the message I want to give tonight, that we have a working relationship which is built on trust. And well aware also that our officers have been working extremely hard on this, and I'd like to thank Steve and his team, because I'm aware that we've got a good deal out of this, and that's not to be detrimental to Serco in any way, shape or form. As was mentioned earlier tonight, these two factors tonight are this council's most important factors to our public. And we've got commonly accused of, well, you only collect waste, don't you? So it's an issue that gets thrown at us, but it's very important that we collect waste, and it's a very important industry. So we've got a good working relationship with Serco. We pushed very strongly in the past for green energy vehicles. I'd like to think that you'd look at that, Serco, when we can in the future. I think that's very important. I know they're not ready yet for the size and our territory. So I'm going to move the recommendation, Chair, and thank the officers for the hard work on this again.
Okay. Councillor Hobson.
Chair, I'm happy to second the recommendation. We find ourselves in uncertain times yet again. We have to react to the situation that we're in. The two requests we've got tonight concern really important issues for the residents of the Dales. I urge our members to support this recommendation. We are in a partnership with Serco, as we are with Freedom, and I'd like members to recognise and remember all the hard work that our officers are doing, working for the authority. They're working with us for the best outcome for everybody. Thank you.
Councillor Allison.
Thank you, Chair. I did have a question actually, just relating to the the delay in issuing the letter of intent. I fully understand the delays that have been caused by COVID. You know, that's beyond anybody's control. The only issue that I did have, and I just wanted a bit more explanation on, was why it was not factored into the timeline for the awarding of the contract, that there could potentially be a challenge by the unsuccessful bidders in this process. Normally you'd mitigate the risk of a challenge by building that into your timeline. And I also wanted to know what the challenge was. Thank you.
Thank you. Ash?
Thank you.
I can answer that first, and perhaps Ash.
Oh, Steve,
come
I beg
in,
your pardon. Sorry, Steve. Sorry.
That's quite all right. Ash will have plenty to add on it, and I'm sure. There was provision built in for challenge. The standstill period was built into the procurement period. The challenge came at the very last day of the last minute of that period, and it was a challenge. It wasn't a formal challenge. It was a series of questions. It was very cleverly done. It was a series of questions that needed to be answered rather than a formal challenge. And those questions involved going through quite a lot of detailed information on rounds, for instance, in order to answer that. Only when we'd answered that, we had to then give the challenger or questioner time to respond before we could be sure that challenge had gone away. So yes, there was a period built into it. It was a question rather than a challenge, but in order to be absolutely sure that we could award to Serco, we needed to see it off.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Atkin.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I was going to second the motion. I agree with everything everybody said, and I'm just happy that we're going to move forward, and hopefully we're going to get everything resolved very shortly. Thank you very much, Chair.
Councillor Finesse.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, well, I'll be supporting the recommendations, but I would just like to say something, because until tonight, I was sympathetic with Serco. You know, they've had this, kept telling us about this. The last contract was unprofitable for them, and we've come through to this, and they're now asking us for some more money. Councillor Buckler, I don't know if anybody's seen this, has circulated the results from Serco, which came out last week, and it shows revenue at 1.8 billion, up 24%, and trading profit up 53%. So it is an extremely profitable company, and I do think they could have waived this £100,000, you know, which they're asking from us. It wouldn't have made the slightest blip in their accounts. But anyway, we're in a contract situation, so we have to deal with it, and I will be supporting the recommendations.
Councillor Tony Morley.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm echoing. I promise I'd never do this, but I'm with Mike Radley on this one. We're rocking a hard place, and you might remember at the beginning I brought up the point about the resale value at the end of it, and I'm hoping I'm still going to be around when we're selling them off. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I am disappointed that we're having to pay this extra money. As Councillor Finesse just said, I've looked at Serco's finances, and they are very, very healthy, and they could have really waived this, because we are partners. We've been partners with them for quite a while, and it would have been a goodwill gesture if they had done, but they haven't done. So I am disappointed, but I will support this with no alternative, Chair. But I would like, just before I finish, I would like to thank all the working staff of the Serco working staff.
Are they picking up your rubbish and your green bins and your blue bins?
No, no, Chair. I'm praising the workforce who collect, the only workforce who collect the refuse every week. They come in bad times and good times, and I will thank the workforce, not the management. I think they could have helped us out more.
I must say, Councillor Stack, I was going to endorse that for all the properties in my ward that is up and down hills and dales and peaks, etc., and not very easy to get at. And I'd like to commend them, and they always greet me with a smile.
Right, okay, yeah, I agree with you.
Anybody else on my list here?
I indicated, Chair.
Oh, sorry, did you, Councillor Flitter?
Thank you. Yes, I do use the proper hand gestures as well. Yeah, I mean, I I want to thank the CLT team again, everybody involved in this, because this has been to me a thankless task. It's one of the most difficult things I think that this council has ever had to deal with. And I do take the point of Councillor Purdy when he said that, yes, it was a buyer's market at one time, and we did get a good deal. But I'm very like Mike Ratcliffe. I am very frustrated with this whole process because I think this is unnecessary. I think Serco are in a position nationally to absorb this, and yet we're still asked to contribute this amount of money, even after having the indignity of having to find many hundreds of thousands of pounds extra for the new contract in its totality. So what I'm really looking for, because my first question, Councillor Jacqueline Allen actually asked, was about the clarification. But the main thing I want to look at is what benefits this council will have in future years, apart from our residents getting their bins emptied. What is driving us for this extra investment? What are we going to get out of it as a council for the future if it's a long-term approach? Thank you.
Right, I've got Ash. Do you want to comment there?
Just very briefly, Chair, it supports the overall contract and what members had approved. So we're talking about improved technology, excuse me, on the RCVs, the communication between Serco and Derbyshire Dales systems, so they talk to each other a lot quicker. The response times are better to the end user in terms of customer service. So it kind of, this just supports the whole package that we put before members that you approved. This is there to make sure we can deliver on that. I appreciate the frustrations, but as I said with the Freedom Leisure situation, we found ourselves in this situation, and we have to try and make the best of it. We are where we are, and we have to deal with that.
Okay, I'd like to ask Ronnie Coots from Serco to respond to one or two of those points.
Chair, thank you. A couple of sort of points, as I think, and a number of speakers have sort of brought it up. I mean, we see this as a sort of partnership that we want to work with the authority on this. I think the unavailability of the vehicles, i.e. the new vehicles, is a problem we're both facing. And I think I see it as a sort of joint approach. We will provide a fleet, and that will cost us about £150,000. And we've asked the authority to sort of the lesser amount to support us with additional sort of maintenance costs. I think that's reflective of the sort of relationship we would want sort of going forward. We would both sort of lean into some of these issues. I think in terms of the benefit from this contract, I think I do understand Councillor's sort of perspective there that the new contract is more expensive, but the market has fundamentally changed in the sense of risk that contractors are prepared to take, but also the value in the recycle it. And that's disappointing probably to everybody on this call that value isn't sort of there right now. So what you've ended up with is a contract that is reflective of the sort of market costs. And then sadly, that is greater than what you were paying for before. So hopefully that just gives some background as well.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you very much. Councillor Cruz.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to reluctantly support this. I think the work that the team have done pulling the report together and the work that they've done with their colleagues at Serco is actually good work. And I do think we need constructive working relationships with Serco. So I think the team involved in our contract, I'm sure they are doing their best. Serco have just increased their free cash flow by £80 million. And a lot of that is off the back of contracts with councils and also track and trace, etc. And they are starting to make abnormal profits. So for me, I just wonder from a local government association, are we getting a good deal out of Serco? We've got too much power in the market, because it seems to me like we don't have any options at the moment, and we ought to be thinking about it strategically through the LGA.
Okay, I take that as a rhetorical question. I've got Councillor Purdy.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to just comment on what Councillor Cruz has raised. It's a conversation, Councillor Cruz, that's been going on for many years. with LGA and other authorities. In fact, we've been discussing it very closely on Vision Derbyshire recently. It's very, very difficult to get end-of-life contracts to come together at the same date. That's the enormous difficulty of it. But there is a wish, a desire to do that.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got nobody else on my list now. I'd like to ask Jackie to go to the vote, please. Remember, alphabetical, please. And Mark's been here the whole time, so that's super. Jackie.
Councillor Allison. 4. Archer.
4.
Atkin.
4.
Bright.
4.
Buckler.
Against.
Bull. 4. Martin Burfoot.
4.
Sue Burfoot. 4. Cruz.
Reluctantly 4.
Donnelly.
For or against, please, ladies and gentlemen. For or against or abstain.
Donnelly.
4.
Fitzherbert.
4.
Litter.
4.
Froggatt.
4.
Vaness.
4.
Gamble.
I left the meeting. I must admit I left the room for a bit, so I'll have to abstain.
Hill.
4.
Hobson.
4.
Hughes.
4.
Please.
4.
Tony Morley.
4.
Michelle Morley.
4.
Paulie.
4.
Purdy.
4.
Ratcliffe.
4.
Rose.
4.
Salt.
4.
Shirley.
4.
Black.
4.
Statham.
4.
Sutton.
4.
Swindle.
4.
Wayne.
4.
Wakeman.
Councillor Wakeman. I think we'll have to.
Again, I'm not sure he's been there the whole time.
No, okay, so no vote for him.
Abstain. Right, so that's 2 abstentions. Ooh, 2 abstentions, 1 against, and 30 in favour.
Thank you very much. The motion is passed. We now have item 5, the CD of documents. Councillor Statham, would you like to move that?
I would, Chair.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Michelle Morley, would you like to second the CD of documents?
Yes, Chair, thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll see you all on the 27th. Thank you very much. Thank you to the officers. Thank you to Serco. Thank you to Freedom, and a very good night to you all. Good night.
Thank you, Chair.
Bye, Richard.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.